got a Yankee homecoming today was because they needed to reach out to the local community and revive it. Okay? They wanted to use that festival as a foundation of arts and crafts and nonprofits and humanities to create this festival. And now, 60 years later, let's back it up to the McDonald's kiosk. This is what came down to N Street last year. And there was a write-up in the Daily News at the end of last year's Yankee homecoming. And on the front page it said, N Street Blues has local businesses crying, McDonald's kiosk, pushy vendors has local businesses crying foul. Now, this is basically what led to the creation of the revival, because it really pissed a lot of people off. And especially, where's Greg? Where are you, Greg? Greg's, if you want to read about this article, it was really headed up by Greg Deacus. He had a lot to say. I tip my hat off to you, Greg, for speaking out. And the director of the Yankee homecoming came down to N Street at the end of the festival, and we actually had it out a little bit. We had a conversation. And the story goes is that it almost came to fisticuffs between him and I. And thank God that it didn't, because I found out that he's a karate black belt. He would have put me down real quick. And instead, he asked me a question that's about to change history on N Street. And he said, John, he says, do you have any better ideas? And I said, yes, Dennis, it just so happens that I do. And being an artist down on N Street, and being about the local artisans, knowing that we should not be allowing corporate sponsors to be paying for our fireworks, and that we should be realigning with this vision that was set forth by an artist, Jack Frost, about contributing to a local economy through local artisans and a local platform based on arts, crafts, nonprofits, and humanities, so that we could be talking about these things tonight instead of talking about the new happy face and McDonald's Happy Meals. So, like I said in my introduction, there's a lot of different bunny trails that we can go hopping down here tonight. And what this presentation is tonight is just basically to plant some seeds for these ideas and these concepts and these conversations to be elaborated on. And Beecher, I swear, if you stick around long enough and you look into this a little bit, by the time that you come down on N Street on July 30th, you will definitely have a better understanding.
I get it now. The past 5 minutes cleared up. You did clear it up. Okay. You know what used to be called McDonald's?
What?
Rat Donald's. Yeah. By Fenway once did, she could throw up in their bathroom when we were leaving the hospital. And she was running in and a rat ran across our path.
So you didn't know that this actually happened?
No. No, so that clarifies.
Yeah. And this is just touching,
so John,
we're just scratching the surface on this.
Yankee,
thank you, Beecher, very much.
So you're saying that the Yankee homecoming people are eager to have you pull together these events for this year?
The Yankee Homecoming Committee didn't have any choice, okay? Because after they heard a few words by Greg Lucas and myself, and if you read this article, you can go into the online archive and bring up this article, just enter N Street Blues, and read this article, and you'll understand what a lot of locals had to say about it. And what's still really kind of, I find amazing about it, is that there were still some people that didn't understand. They saw nothing wrong with this. They saw nothing wrong with a corporate entity like McDonald's coming into N Street, paying $15,000 for their rent to support our fireworks, and then not allowing the local artisans to be able to buy that space and make money and contribute to a local economy, the local creative, sustainable economy. see what was wrong with that. They didn't get it.
So does that mean that local artists were not represented in the...
No, local artists are not represented. Now, you mentioned that you come down to Yankee Homecoming, you see a lot of tents and artisans. No, you don't. You only see that one day during Yankee Homecoming. Yankee Homecoming is a 9-day festival. They only do that one day. And how many of those artisans were actually local? Okay?
They're mostly from out of town.
They're mostly from out of town. And all the rest of those vending operations that you see up and down N Street, okay, they're not artisans. They were New Pro Window, and I don't mean to really, get down on any corporate entity or anything like that. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that they weren't artisans. And they're not local. As a matter of fact, the audacity of what they did last year is they brought the McDonald's kiosk, and you know where they parked it? Right in front of the Purple Onion, which is a local restaurant. And a few booths down here, down by where my cart was, they brought in a chocolate factory, an out-of-town chocolate factory, right across the street from Eat Cake and the ice cream shop, Simply Sweet. So
is this a part of their financial model, that this is the only way they think they can support?
that was the thing. They didn't know. They didn't even stop to think. And so when I approached Dennis Palazzo on this, and I said, Dennis, yes, I do have a better idea. Why not reach out to the local artisans and have them support and finance and meet your $11,000 budget? And he looked at me like I had 3 heads, like it was some foreign concept. And he went home that night, and he came back on the Sunday, which was the last day of Yankee Homecoming, and he came up to me and he said, John, he says, I was lying in bed last night, my wife and I talked to her about this, and she looked at me and said, Dennis, that's a great idea. Why didn't you think about this? And so at that moment, that was really the initial creation of the Artisans Revival. We shook hands on a deal on the last Sunday of last year's Yankee Homecoming. And he said, I'll tell you what, I said, I will give you a year of my life. I will make this happen. I'll stand up and I will claim this. We will call it the N Street Revival, but you make me one deal. He says, you give me total control of the artisans or the types of vending operations that come into N Street, and you do not allow any corporate entity or foreign corporate entity. And I shook his hand, and we agreed. And he says, John, I says, if you do this, he says, I'll even create a banner for you, and I'll put it in front of Market Square, and we'll hang it, and we'll call it the N Street Artisans Revival. So that was actually the initial creation of the Artisans Revival. But even then, it still had, so you've got the Yankee Homecoming Committee here that's kind of teetering this road. They know that they've misaligned. If you go in and you read about the write-up that is on the events page for the N Street Artisans Revival, you will hear them making reference to Jack Frost, and the artisan who actually came up with the creation of N Street Artisans Revival. They know that they've kind of screwed up here and that they've gotten lost. And now that they've been called on it, and they really don't have any choice but to back up off of this now. They have to back it. And they're seeing that the N Street Artisans Revival, as more and more people are getting it and understanding what this has as far as the possibilities. This is why I talked about tapping into that field of infinite possibilities. Because once you start breaking through the quagmire here, you'll start seeing and understanding that there's so many infinite possibilities that can come out of this. There's a lot of different trails that this can go down.
Did you say that you're in charge of finding the artisans, or he was? I couldn't really...
Right now, I'm basically putting the entire show together. We're looking for different volunteers, to basically move into some type of overseeing the different categories.
So do we have any artisans yet?
We're about 3/4 booked.
Oh, okay.
All right. The goal that we have to reach is $11,000.
Oh, so it's not the numbers of vendors, it's the number of money.
That's correct. And not only that, but so he started with 17 spaces that he needed to fill last year, and he basically filled them through corporate sponsors. I replaced the 17 corporate sponsors with 17 artisans. And then I worked out another deal with Jennifer LaCroix, who does the one-day Artisans Festival.
Yeah.
And they reserved that entire Byron's court off of N Street. You know where I'm talking about with the pyramid? So they didn't allow any vendors to go down there because they had the craftsmen come down on that one day, on that Tuesday. This year will be August 2nd. But I made a deal with her. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll make you an extra $5,000. I will exceed the $11,000 by $5,000 more if you give up that space and you allow me to create a farmer's market element to the artisans market. If you were to take those 6 vendors that you come down for one day and move them elsewhere and give me that Byron's Court for 9 days, it was a no-brainer.
So how many, so you have, do you have?
So that
your documents
increased it from
that's
17 artisan vendors to 6 more farmers market. So now we're adding an entire new category, an agricultural category, realigning with this original vision of what Newburyport and Newbury was all about, plus raising more money and utilizing the space better. I'm sorry to cut you off. What was
No, I'm just wondering if all of this is on the website. Do you have all the list of all these people who signed up?
They will be.
So it's not there yet?
It's not there yet. This is a big undertaking and a big process. It's going to take some time to get it all put together. And when I originally came up with the original concept of the Artisans Revival, they looked at me and they said, John, you know, these are pretty big, high aspirations. And I said, yeah, I know. And that's because the way that I approach it is basically I'm going to shoot through the moon, you know, the stars, and if we end up with the moon this year, then that's going to be okay. Because this is going to be something that they're already talking about, an annual event. They know that they've got something here, and if we don't get the stars this year, we'll reach them next year. But we're going to build it up, and we're going to grow with it.
So is it still one day that all the vendors are there, or is it going to be all 9 days that the vendors can be there now?
The artisans?
Yeah, the artisans.
All 9 days.
So they don't have just one day now, they have like every day they could rent a
We
space.
have, right. The In-Street Artisans Revival is going to be a 9-day festival. We're going to be featuring the artisans have a choice to come in, to book a space for either all 9 days at a discounted price, or they can do it for 1 day at a time. And I knew going into this that 9 days was a lot for an artisan to take on, okay? Whether it be for just doing it for 9 days or their inventory or whatnot. So what that did was that forced me into making a logistical kind of tactical move here. I said, okay, I know that 9 days is going to be hard for artists to book. So let's book it out per day. Okay, so now we've got 25 spaces for different artisans to come in and book it out for 1 day or 2 days, which means that if you were to come down to N Street 1 day, it's going to be practically 50% or 75% different a couple of days from now. So it adds to the diversity. So not only do we have, 17 artisans, but now we might have 30. We might have 40 different artisans that are going to be splitting up these 17 artisans.
Help me with some numbers here. You're talking about 11,000 on Public Boulevard, Promenade. Who gets the 11,000?
That goes to Yankee Homecoming to pay for the
Why do they
fireworks.
need 11,000?
Why? Because that's what they were getting from their corporate sponsors.
Where does it go?
It goes to paying for the fireworks.
Everything.
For basically paying for
Oh,
the
Yankee
Yankee
Homecoming.
Homecoming.
Yeah.
We're paying for fireworks. So how many spaces are there? And tell me about what the rent is per space.
Right now, we're asking $100 a day for a space, $650 for the 9 days.
And how big is the space?
10 by 10.
10 by 10? And $11,000 is the whole amount for how many booths?
It was based on 17 booths.
17
17 booths.
to get to 11,000.
It was roughly, I mean, I'm using ballpark figures here.
And so the 11,000 goes to Yankee Homecoming to pay for the fireworks.
Yeah, from what I understand, the festivities that Yankee Homecoming puts on, it costs about $60,000.
So, how much of that goes to the LaCroix family?
Sorry, you're asking the wrong person about that. I'm basically, dealing with the in-street vending, and if you have any questions
And what
about...
role does the chairman of this year's Yankee Homecoming play in this? Do you work with him, or do you work with Dennis LaCroix?
Yeah, this event was basically, came about through Dennis Palazzo. The chairperson that they nominate every year, I don't know if they're nominated